Welcome everyone for joining us today. My name is Jolie and I am the Student Recruitment Manager at the College of Legal Practice. Together with my colleague Sydney, we oversee the journey of prospective students from initial interest to applying and signing up to a course with the college. And I also work with different universities and their law societies in supporting their events and fairs as well. And here we have Helen, our module leader with us today as well. So Helen is the module leader for the SQE1 prep course and also a supervisor for a number of different modules. So welcome and thank you for joining us today, Helen.
Hi,
And
everyone.
thank you. And also we have Ben, our current LLM student with us today. Ben has passed his SQE1 and he is now waiting for his SQE2 result. So thank you very much for joining us, Ben.
Thank you for having me. Hi, everyone.
Thank you. So just a bit of introduction and also tell you guys a little bit more about what we're going to cover today. Of course, by the topic, we're going to talk about the things that you will need to know before starting your SQE journey. So there are a few things that we would like to cover today, including the most important part, the SQE assessment, what is actually included in the SQE assessment, the qualifying work experience, and then we'll provide some insights into choosing the right or suitable SQE prep course for you. And we'll also talk a little bit about the cost and funding. And also with Ben here today, and it will be really nice for him to actually share some of his experience in preparing and also taking the SQE exam. And then lastly, we will talk a little bit about the courses that we offer at the College of Legal Practice. And of course, throughout the whole session, if anyone has any questions, you can put it in the chat box or you can book a time with us as well. So first of all, who are we? So for those who don't know, we are a fully online postgraduate law school built for online, and we specialize in SQE preparation. Our parent company is the College of Law, and they are based in Australia, and they are the leaders in legal education. So we have around over 20 years of digital learning expertise. And you can see the 4 points about our ethos. And the first point is all about accessible and also affordable. So traditionally, the legal sector or law is known for being a profession with many, many barriers. And we really wanted to remove those barriers by doing our part to eliminate it and to really offer a more affordable and accessible course. And also, we are all about facilitating access through our personal and targeted individual support, where students will get access to high level of personal tutor supervision. And lastly, we also would like to ensure that we provide an inclusive learning environment through our learning and also teaching. So you will be able to see that reasonable adjustments are available for those who need it. And this will give everyone an opportunity to get the most out of their learning with us. And on this slide here, you can see a list or some examples of law firm, organizations, and universities that we work with. And of course, we have more. If you wanted to learn more about our partnership and how we work with them, feel free to go on our website for more information. So moving forward, of course, the first important thing is what is SQE? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass it to Helen, and she's going to tell us a little bit about the SQE route, the assessment, and also some possible pathway. So over to you now, Helen. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Jolie. Okay, so the SQE route, so welcome.
Oh, I'm really sorry, Helen. I think you're on mute. Oh, I will try to unmute you. Okay, it's all good now. Good, thank you.
Sorry about that, everyone. Hi, everyone. Thanks a lot for coming along tonight, and thanks, Jolie, for handing over to me. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the SQE route. So in terms of, we've got a nice little sort of 4-piece jigsaw puzzle here, which is the SQE route. So first of all, you've got to have a degree or equivalent. So it doesn't have to be a law degree, it can be any degree. And then from that, you can progress to do the SQE1. So that is the multiple choice course that deals with foundational knowledge and practical knowledge of the law, and I'll talk about that in a little bit on some future slides. And SQE2 is putting that, what we call functioning legal knowledge, into practice using skills. So the SQE2 can only be taken once you've passed SQE1. You've also got to meet the SRA, so Solicitors Regulation Authority, that look after the solicitors profession. They also say that you've got to meet their suitability requirements in terms of suitability and character. So you've got to have integrity, you've got to have lived your life in a way that hopefully means there isn't any barriers to entering into the profession that way. So that is something that you deal with personally with the SRA when you're making your application to qualify as a solicitor. And then also you've got to complete 2 years qualifying work experience. So that is the sort of 4-piece jigsaw puzzle that makes up the SQE. So some more key facts then. So that was just a bit of an overview. So let's think first of all about the SQE1. So this is the assessment that you have to pass first of all before you can progress on your route to being a qualified solicitor. So in the SQE1 assessment, it tests, as I said, functioning legal knowledge. So you might see that abbreviated to FLK. In the legal profession, we seem to like, and especially legal education, we seem to like lots of acronyms. So it's testing your functioning legal knowledge. So those foundational law subjects, so contract, tort, legal systems, etc. And then we also are looking at the practical side of things as well. So property law, business law and practice, dispute resolution, etc. And there's 13 different practice areas, and those are drawn from, as I say, the LLB foundational subject and then the legal practice course compulsory subjects. So those are the more practical ones. How is the SQE1 assessed? How is that functioning legal knowledge tested? Well, it's tested through multiple choice questions in 2 examinations. So you've got 360 multiple choice questions to take as part of your SQE1 assessment, but they do split it. So 180 questions will be in paper 1, what we call functioning legal knowledge, or FLK1, and then 180 questions will be in the second paper, so FLK, Functioning Legal Knowledge 2, and those are in separate weeks, okay? So we'll talk about the assessment points in a minute, but basically over the assessment period, which is a 2-week period, in the first week you can choose the day when you're going to sit your paper 1, so those Functioning Legal Knowledge 1 practice areas, and then in the second week you can choose when you want to sit the FLK paper 2 as practice areas. So in terms of how that works then, you will be assessed in a number of different practice areas, and you'll be assessed thinking about the single best answer. Okay, so you can take the tests at Pearson VUE test centres, so a bit like sort of the driving centres that you go to when you're doing your driving theory test, and everything is online. So it's an online computer-based assessment, and the assessment dates are in July. So the one that we're working towards at the moment is in July 24. Some students have just sat in January 2025. So the next sit is in July 2024, and then the next sit after that is in January 2025. So it tends to be that they have 2 sittings at the moment, one in July and one in January. And the exam fees are £1,798 at the moment, but obviously the SRA might decide to change those assessment fees, just like they might decide to change the assessment dates, but they do give notice in relation to that. So if you want to check anything, you can have a look on their website, so the SRA website, and then if you go into the the SQE section, it's broken down into lots of useful information there about the SQE assessments 1 and 2. So the multiple choice questions So not only is this a shift away from maybe what you've done at your degree in terms of how you're studying, whether you've done a law degree or whether you've done a degree in a different subject, it's a shift away maybe from the traditional way that you might have been tested. So in terms of the multiple choice questions then, these are single best answer questions. So what does that mean? Well, you get a scenario, okay, so you get a short scenario. Sometimes it might be a few lines, sometimes it might be a little bit more. And effectively, that is what we call the stem or the scenario, the fact pattern, setting out the story. And then from that, you've got a question that you get asked. And from that, you've then got 5 options or 5 alternatives to choose from. And you've got to choose the best one of those 5 options. They're all plausible, okay, and often there's some distractors in there that look like, well, that's legally correct, technically correct, but from that scenario, is that the single best answer? And that's what you're looking for. Okay, so it's a little bit of a shift in mindset from maybe what you've done previously in relation to law assessments if you are a law student, or maybe if you're not a law student, from the assessments that you've been sitting at university. You've got 180 questions, as I say, in each paper, and that's split into 2 papers. So you've got 90 questions in 2 hours, 33 minutes. Then you've got a 60-minute break, and then you've got another assessment, which is another 2 hours and 33 minutes. So that works out about 1 minute 40 seconds per question, which sounds very technical and very mathematical, but timing, as I'm sure Ben will mention later on, having successfully passed the SQE1 is something that you do need to be mindful of from the outset. So effectively, with SQE1, you're assessed over 10 hours in 4 different assessments over 2 days. But as I say, the functioning legal knowledge is in the first week, and then functioning legal knowledge 1 is in the first week, functioning legal knowledge 2 is in the second week. So you have got a little bit of a break. Okay, so once you've passed SQE1, okay, and you've got over doing your little victory dance, you've then got to think about SQE2. Okay, so SQE2, key facts here, the SQE2 assessment, this is where you are being tested in your legal skills. So oral skills, so you've got client interviewing, and then you've also got advocacy. So those are the oral skills, which you'll just see on that right-hand side there on the screen under the bullet points with the heading legal skills. And then you've also got written legal skills as well to think about. So you've got case and matter analysis, you've got legal drafting, legal research, and legal writing. So you've got 6 skills that you've been assessed upon, as you can see from those bullet points on the right-hand side, and those are assessed within 5 practice areas. So 5 of those practice areas that you were looking at for SQE1 and thinking about your functioning legal knowledge, you need to take that functioning legal knowledge with you into SQE2. So the practice areas there are business, dispute resolution, property, crime, and wills. And the SQE2 assessment is made up of 16 skills assessments called stations. So just to get used to the terminology. So you've got 12 written stations. Okay, so thinking about those skills that we just talked about there, case and matter analysis, legal drafting, legal research, and legal writing. And then you've got 4 oral stations, so advocacy and client interview and attendance note. And there's like legal analysis within that as well. So the written assessments can be taken worldwide. Again, a Pearson VUE centre. They have centres in the UK and also all over the world. So if you go to the SQE website, you can see, sorry, the SRA website, the SQE element of it, you can see that where those are. So you can do a little bit of a search and see where things are. The assessment dates for SQE2, there's more of those, so there's more assessment opportunities. So they're in January at the moment, April, July and October. And then the SQE2 fees, as you can see there, are currently at 2,766. So they're a bit more because there's obviously real life people that you need to interview, and there's a bit more going on in relation to what's happening with skills assessments as opposed to a computer-based assessment. So I think we can move on now to the next slide. So we've talked about SQE1, we've talked about SQE2. We now need to think about qualifying work experience, okay, or QWE. And qualifying work experience is effectively 2 years, so 24 months work experience that you need to demonstrate. So this period of practical work experience. And within that practical work experience, you need to demonstrate that you've developed or been given the opportunity to develop some of the SRA's solicitor competencies. Okay, so they can be taken anywhere in the world, these practical work experience blocks, and we're looking at them over this 2-year, 24-month period in up to 4 different organisations, actually. So if you've been doing different work experience with different organisations, as long as you can evidence the fact that you have had the opportunity to develop some of the SRA's solicitor competences, you can show that you've got the relevant qualifying work experience. And again, there's information on the SRA website about that. And also we've run sessions in the past where we've mentioned and talked through qualifying work experience in a little bit more depth. There's no minimum or maximum length for those placements, but they have got to be confirmed by a solicitor or a compliance officer. So it's not just reliant upon what you're putting in as your evidence. You need to get somebody to sign off on that for you. So qualifying work experience, QWE, more in acronyms, is a lot more flexible than the old training contract used to be. And you can actually take the SQE assessments alongside your qualifying work experience. So if you get a job, if you're paralegaling, you can do the SQE assessments alongside that experience that you're getting. You can bank your previous qualifying work experience as long as you can demonstrate that you have had the opportunity to develop some of those SRA's solicitor competences. And also, don't forget, you need to get it signed off as well. So you can also count voluntary work in there. So if you've been doing sort of pro bono work as well, so that's, you know, that just gives a little bit more flexibility around it, which makes it more accessible, I suppose, which is what the SRA wanted in terms of going down the whole SQE route and this new way to qualify. So in terms of SQE pathways then, so you might think, okay, well, I know I want to be a solicitor and I want to get my qualifications done and out of the way, in which case you might want to think about doing the prep courses. Okay, so you could do SQE1 prep, then you set the SQE1 assessment, then you go straight into SQE2 prep as a course, as a module, and then you'd set the SQE2 assessments. Then you could do your qualifying work experience at the end. Okay, so you just might want to think, I'll just get qualifications out of the way first, those assessments, and then I'm going to do my qualifying work experience. It may be that you think, well, or you could do the full-time LLM in legal practice rather than just sort of the prep courses. You might think, well, actually, I need to finance while I'm studying, so I need to work whilst I study. So you could be doing, as I said before, that qualifying work experience alongside doing the SQE1 prep course, then sit the assessment for SQE1, then jump on board an SQE2 prep course, and then do SQE2. So that shortens the period in terms of which you can actually qualify as a solicitor. Or you might want to think about doing the part-time LLM in legal practice. I'm not sure if being a solicitor actually is for me, in which case you might want to have a little bit of a dabble and put your toe in the water and see, well, actually, I'm going to have a go. I'm just going to get a job, paralegal job. I'm going to do some voluntary work, some pro bono work. I'm going to see if it's for me. So you could do a bit of that at the outset. And then if you think, well, actually, that is for me, You could then go down the route, so that the last section that we're looking at there on this slide is you then do the SQE1 prep, do the exam, SQE2 prep, do the exam, or you could, if you don't want to do the prep courses and you want to do the LLM, you could do a part-time LLM in legal practice. So that gives you the flexibility depending on what your circumstances are.
Great, thank you very much, Helen. We actually have some questions around the qualifying work experience that maybe you will be able to answer for us. So, in terms of the duration, of course, it is 24 months. Is this period continuous, or can it be done over a longer period of time, or do you have to do it in like 2 years' times, or can you do it, or can you
As
spread
long
it
as you
out?
can, yeah, as long as you can demonstrate that you've got the 24 months of qualifying work experience that meets the SRA's requirements in relation to that newly qualified day one outcomes, and also you've got somebody to sign it off. I suppose, you've got to be able to evidence it. So that's something to be mindful of if you are thinking, just thinking about that last slide where we said you might want to dabble, dip your toe in the water, have a go, just make sure you're getting that signed off. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you very much, Helen. And also another question about the person who's going to sign off the qualifying work experience. Can you maybe give us some more example or explain a little bit more who will be considered a solicitor or compliance officer? Is this a specifically qualified person, or is it just anyone, any qualified solicitor in England and Wales will be able to do that?
Yeah, you just need to find somebody who's qualified as a solicitor who's actually can, as I say, evidence the fact that you have had the opportunities to do this. So it's got to be somebody who's had the experience with you, I suppose. So a supervisor maybe. So yes, it's not a sort of specially qualified person that can only do it for the purposes of the SRA's qualifying work experience, but you still need to find somebody who is willing to sign off in relation to that.
Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you very much, Helen. So, what we can do is we can move on. Of course, I know that quite a lot of people in this webinar, you might be in different stages of your journey. But of course, if you are at a very early stage and you are unsure if the solicitor profession is right for you, we have a guide called Becoming a Solicitor that you might find it quite insightful and helpful to help you decide if this profession is for you. So in the guide, we basically prepare quite a lot of information about the day-to-day life of a solicitor. And then also we will introduce different types of solicitor there as well. And also we helped you decide whether a solicitor profession is right for you and then how to become a qualified solicitor. So feel free to download this guide. It is free, so and it's packed with lots of tips, experience, and also information and advices. So strongly recommend you to download that if you are at an early stage and you're unsure if you wanted to start your SQE journey and potentially become a qualified solicitor. So moving forward, of course, it's about choosing the right SQE preparation course for you. For example, if you know that the solicitor profession is you, you are at a later stage now, you know that this is something that you wanted to do, you wanted to qualify as a solicitor, but then the next step will be you need to prepare for the actual SQE exam. And we basically has four factors here that we think will be really helpful if you consider that before you choose the right kind of preparation course for you. And we will be looking at the duration, the course content, the cost and funding option, and also what do the firm think about the preparation course versus the LLM. So for the SQE preparation course, we're talking about the standalone SQE preparation course. And then for the LLM, it is about the LLM in legal practice program that we offer. And this LLM includes both SQE1 and SQE2 preparation, which we are going to talk about in more detail in our next slides. So I'm going to invite Helen back to our discussion here, and we're going to basically talk through some of the factors that students will need to consider. So first of all, here you can see that comparing the course duration, you can see on the left-hand side, you can see the course options offered by our college. So the standalone SQE preparation course, for example, we can see that the SQE 1, you can do it full-time 13 weeks, or if you do it part-time, you have 20 weeks or 40 weeks option. And on the right-hand side, you will be able to see an example of timeline and the potential journey of your whole SQE timeline. One good thing about the standalone SQE prep course is that it is flexible in a sense that you can mix and match your study mode for SQE 1 and SQE 2 prep, depending on your commitment. So for example, you can see those orange boxes under the example full-time. It is one of the way you can do it. So for example, you can do it full-time SQE 1 prep. You do your assessment and then you get your result. But then depending on your commitment, depending on your work commitment or family commitment, you might want to do your SQE2 prep part-time. Then it will be possible if you do it with our college, you can do it part-time 20 weeks or 40 weeks, depending on how you want it to learn. And then also you can also decide by the kind of when you wanted to sit your assessment and then work it backwards as well. But then, Helen, as you can see at the bottom of this slide, you can see the LLM that we have full-time and part-time option. Will you be able to give us some insights or talk through us the kind of timeline if a student is actually doing an LLM with us? What would be the kind of journey look like for a student?
Yeah, certainly. So doing the LLM then, so just looking at the example at the bottom next to LLM in legal practice, if we just move across and see example full time, we can see that as part of the LLM, you start off doing your SQE preparation course. So with us, that's called the Solicitor's Legal Knowledge. And you would start that in March. And then you'd start that we're just about to start one actually on the 25th of March. So that would be kicking in then, and then you'd be having your studies through to the first week of June. And then you'd be having an internal assessment that you would need to pass. So you need to pass that. So you can move on to the next elements of it. So you've got your SQE1 prep, that's Solicitor's Legal Knowledge, March to June 2024. You've then got our internal COLP, College Legal Practice Assessment, which counts as part of your master's. So you've got to pass that. And then that aligns nicely as a bit of a practice assessment actually for the SQE1 assessment that would take place in July. So that Functioning Legal Knowledge 1 assessment that I mentioned, and then the Functioning Legal Knowledge 2 assessment, which makes up the SQE1. So you could sit that in July, get that out of the way, and then hang around waiting for your results till September. But whilst you were hanging around, you wouldn't actually be doing nothing. So you would be studying one of your elective modules. So you can see the way that it's currently structured. We've got 3 elective modules there, and we sort of call those transactional modules. So you might want to do family, you might want to do employment, you might want to do dispute resolution, you might want to do a more commercial route in terms of private acquisitions or something like that. But you would study that first elective module July to September, and there's some internal assessments there. And then then you would move from September through to October. Again, you'd have the next elective module with some assessments at the end of that. Then you would move on from November to December with that 3rd elective module as it currently stands. Or you can see there that we're looking to change the number of elective modules from 3 to 2, and we're going to make those more credit bearing. So it's not like you're going to have to do sort of less, we're just changing the focus of it a little bit. And then you would start doing yours, you'd have Christmas off, hooray. And then you would have SQE2 prep starting in January to March, and then you'd be signing up for the SQE2 assessment in April. So again, at the end of March, you'll have some internal assessments for the Solicitor's Legal Skills is what we call it, our SQE2 prep course. You would pass those hopefully. Again, brilliant practice for SQE2, the assessment that would take place April to sort of May time. And then you would then be moving on and throughout actually part of doing your SQE2 prep, some of those elective modules, you'd be thinking about your capstone. So your capstone is just like a dissertation effectively. So you would pick an area of law that you were interested in, you would have a chat with the supervisor, put a proposal together, think about where you want to go with that. And then you'd meet with your supervisor a number of times to help over that kind of period that I just mentioned there. And you're sort of doing it a little bit alongside your other studies. But if you sort of start earlier on, it just gives you the opportunity to kind of get it to be in a good position after you've done your SQE2 assessment to actually do a really good job of some meaty critical analysis, evaluation of the law in relation to your capstone submission, and you'd be handing that in July. So that's how the full-time LLM would look, if that has been useful, Johnny.
Yeah, thank you very much, Helen. I guess it's very, very useful to have a very clear journey and timeline what the students' timeline would look like. And I guess another important things to consider is that, as you mentioned earlier, there will be internal assessment for the module as well. So that's something that we need to bear in mind. This is still a master's degree that we need to do. So beside the SQE preparation, there's still internal assessment that you will need to do. And there's also an expectation from the college that all students will need to continue the program, whether or not they decide to sit the exam, the SQE1 national or SQE2 national assessment, or whether they pass or not. So they will still need to continue with their module. So do you think this will be something quite manageable for students, given that, okay, the focus of this master's is still the master's degree, but do you think this will be something more manageable for students, given that they still need to follow the kind of set timeline for each of the module?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're doing it full time, it may be that this is your sole focus, in which case, it's absolutely manageable. It may be that you're doing it full time, but actually you need to do some funding as well. So you might have a job, you might have a legal job that you're doing alongside it, sort of maybe 1 or 2 days a week. Or you might be going down the part-time route, which obviously is a little bit more challenging. And whether we bring Ben in on this at this point, or whether you want to keep him for a little bit later on, I don't know. But Ben, you're living the dream at the moment, aren't you?
Yeah, of course.
I very much am, Helen. Yes, no. In answer to your question, Jory, yeah, it is manageable. I'm on the part-time
Brilliant.
LLM, which I can discuss a little bit later. I'll be realistic, it is intense, and you do need to dedicate a significant amount of your life for the LLM and the SQE exams, but it's manageable and you can do it. You just need to ensure that you're disciplined with your time, but also as well that you also factor in some downtime as well. That is also important. But yeah, no, it is manageable. You just need to, I think, go into this and knowing that it is going to be, a significant amount of your time, but it is definitely manageable.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Ben. And yeah, of course, we will have more time to really ask you more questions about your experience in doing our part-time LLM. But thank you so much for giving some insights here.
No
Thank you.
worries.
And then, of course, moving forward, what we're going to do is we're going to give you a very brief introduction of the kind of difference in terms of the course content, and also just an overview of what more our LLM it's included in terms of the modules. So on the screen here, you will be able to see a QR code, and you will be able to download the course demo and some sample materials if you wanted to learn more about the course structure, how we learn, the learning structure of the course as well. So feel free to scan the QR code and download the respective demo. So, of course, just now we talked about, okay, we're going to do some electives if you're doing the LLM. But Helen, will you be able to tell us a little bit more about what is actually included in, for example, a SQE1 preparation? How will the student learn, and how do we actually help the student to prepare for the SQE assessment?
Yeah, so the Solicitor's Legal Knowledge, the SQE1 prep course, is all about getting your head around this, as I say, often new to people way of being assessed in terms of multiple choice questions with the best answer alternatives. So you get a Canvas calendar, so you've got everything mapped out on a sort of daily basis for you. We've taken the stress out of you having to work out what you need to do when by actually giving that to you. So you get access to a platform. It's called Canvas, similar to probably other platforms that you might have used before in your undergraduate studies in terms of where all the materials are found. But there's a great tool in there, the Canvas calendar, which is when everything is mapped out for you. So it's telling you, we give you materials. So we give you those 13 different practice areas. We give you materials, so core materials, which is core knowledge effectively for you. We've tried to make it laser focused so it's not too overwhelming. The danger when you're looking at 13 different practice areas is that you kind of feel like you need to read everything you can get your hands on, but you kind of don't. You need to be kind of realistic and keep everything in perspective in terms of what you actually know. So it is a little bit different probably to what you've done at undergraduate level in terms of the kind of depth of analysis. We're looking at the foundational law and then how we apply that to clients' problems, because that is how the assessment works. That is what the SRA are looking to test you on, your legal knowledge, okay, your functioning legal knowledge. So not only is it legal knowledge, it's how does it work? So that's the functioning element of it. And the way that we do it then, so we give you the calendar, we give you units. So we give you the materials. So each one of the practice areas is what we call a unit. So we've got a contract unit, we've got a tort unit, we've got a conduct unit, we've got a business unit, just by way of an example. And then, so basically that's like a manual. And within that manual, it's broken down into chapters. And that's what we call a subunit. So each week, on each day, you'll be asked to look at a different subunit for a different practice area. And you will then be asked, once you've done some reading from that manual, you'll be then taken through a really interesting and interactive online way of learning, which is you have some activities to have a look at. So you will be given a sort of like a bit of an audio introduction as well, in relation to what that particular topic area is going to be about in relation to that chapter. You will do your reading, so that just kind of whets your appetite. You then do your reading, then you have a go at doing some activities. So just to test your knowledge in terms of, right, okay, well, what have I retained from what I've just read? So some nice active kind of drag and drop up activities whereby you've got maybe a short paragraph with some words that you need to sort of drag into the right place. So it's really kind of visual and very active. So it's, to try and get your brain going, to embed this knowledge rather than just reading and making notes. It's to try and do that active learning. Then once you've done that, the next stage of our sort of learning methodology is to have a go at doing some flashcards. So again, there'll be some scenarios, which are all leading you to kind of these skills that you need to think about in terms of answering the multiple choice questions. So testing your knowledge first with a drag and drop. Then we're looking at scenarios, and it's very much, well, what are the issues that are arising from those scenarios? And you sort of jot them down, or you think about it, or you type it, depending on what your preference is. And then you turn it. So again, there's an active element where you flip the card and you can see kind of what the things that you should have been thinking about on the back are. So that will then hopefully help to put things into context for you. So the knowledge in the manual is kind of stripped out, and then you're using that basic knowledge. You're starting to build on that by looking at scenarios, clients' problems, what are the issues, and then you lead up to do some multiple choice questions at the end of each one of those subunits to kind of test your understanding. It's kind of like, right, I've been through that process. What have I actually retained? What do I actually know? How can I apply that to a client's problem? And the subunit multiple choice questions are there as part of this learning methodology. So you've got that, so that's great. And then you've got formative assessments, so mock assessments at various points throughout the course, which are all multiple choice question based again. And we mix up. So once you've done that subunit, say you're doing it on contract, you will go through that methodology, you will do 10 contract subunit multiple choice questions. And then if you've got any of those wrong, you can go back and sort of revisit those elements, because it will pinpoint in the feedback that you get where you need to go back and look. So it's very, say, laser focused in relation to finding out if you have got any gaps in your knowledge or understanding. And then these mock assessments are actually starting to replicate what you're going to get in the SQE1 assessment. So you've got questions coming from different practice areas. So you're not just got your batch of, 5 contract, 5 taught. It will be a contract one, then it might be a business one, then it might be a taught one. So you're getting used to that way of using your brain in a slightly different, agile way, I suppose, because I think when we are studying, especially if we're doing a law degree, we tend to do it very much like, oh, well, let's do that practice area, let's do that subject, we'll test that, and then we'll move on. So it's not like that for the SQE1 assessment. It's 13 different practice areas, different questions flying at you. I mean, you can split them into the FLK1, FLK2 subjects, but don't forget you've got one exam one week and one exam the next week. So we try and get you prepped in relation to that from the word go, really. So that's what the Solicitor's Legal Knowledge SQE1 prep course looks like.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Helen. And I know that on top of course, it's really good to hear that while the student learn, it will be guided through different stages. So as you mentioned, it's not just they got dumped all the materials, it will be all guided, and then they will test their knowledge using flashcards, using the multiple choice questions. That's really good. And I also know that we also offer supervision and also support. Can you tell us a little bit more about the surgeries, the town halls, the group sessions, and also the personal supervisions that we offer on top of the guided learning?
Yeah, absolutely. So that is kind of like the materials, the online elements in terms of the sort of operational side of things, I suppose, in terms of the actual legal knowledge. But you've also got people to look after you as well, because you're online, aren't you? So you do get to see people. So we have a one-to-one supervisor, so it's a bit like a personal tutor, somebody who'll be looking after you while you run the module. You'll have regular touch points with those supervisors, sometimes in a one-to-one setting, sometimes in a group setting, to try and sort of foster this collegiate sort of environment in terms of, I'm not just sitting at a computer on my own. Actually, I can go to a group meeting with my supervisor and we can have a nice discussion about how everybody's feeling, how did everybody feel about that mark, am I okay? And people can share tips as well, so it's really nice from that perspective, from a group session. But then you've also got some time personally with your supervisor when you can talk about, well, actually, I'm really worried about trust. What can I do to help myself in relation to trust? Okay. And we can give you some tips. Have you tried doing this? Have you tried doing that? Are you spending too long making loads of notes? Because you don't need to be doing that. Actually, you need to think about a different way of getting that information embedded. It might be through mind maps, it might be through sort of checklists, structure diagrams, things like that. So we can talk to you about your own personal journey in relation to the actual preparation courses that you're doing. So that's the supervision, one-to-one supervisor. You also have a module leader. So we regularly meet, especially at the outset of the course when everybody's kind of bedding in, everybody's finding their feet. So we've got recorded town hall meetings, which sort of set out specific information that you can go back to where you maybe don't want to listen to a whole town hall meeting. So something that's very specific to maybe multiple choice questions. So there's like a 10-minute refresher. Right, actually, I need to remember what I'm supposed to be doing in relation to this. So you can just go back and listen to that. We do meet as a group. You can ask questions in those town hall meetings. Everything's recorded. So whatever we do, if you can't attend a live session, will be recorded and posted on your platform for you to go back and have a look at. So there is that as well in terms of kind of live contact. And then we also offer surgeries as well. So the surgeries are kind of going through some maybe more tricky areas of law, thinking about questions that have been raised by students, because we also give you access to discussion boards where there's one for each practice area, and you can post questions in there telling us kind of, oh, well, actually, I wasn't really quite sure about this. Could you explain it? So if you tell us exactly where it is that you're struggling in relation to the subunit, the subparagraph, or the multiple choice question that you didn't quite understand, somebody, a subject matter expert, can come back to you in relation to that and help you navigate your way through that. So there's the discussion boards as well. And as I say, they will feed into, we'll look at those if we're delivering a surgery, and we'll think, okay, well, actually, there was obviously a bit of confusion around this. That is a bit tricky. Students often get a little bit worried about that aspect, so we can talk it through with you. We can also look at multiple choice question technique. So we might look at some of the multiple choice questions from the materials, the subunits, or it may be one from one of the formative assessments, and we can talk through that, and it'll be very much like, right, how should you approach it? How did you approach it? So we'll ask you as well. So there's some interactivity if you come along to those sessions, and we're really keen that it's not just us talking, like I'm talking at you at the moment, but we hear from you as well and get your thoughts, because again, it's very good to get these discussions going, because that's what embeds the knowledge in your mind. And sometimes if you get things wrong as well, actually that's a great learning experience. So there's lots of support available for you as well. So hopefully that answers that question, Charlie.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Helen. And of course, it will be really great to hear later from Ben, his opinion, also his feedback on the approach that we have, how we help with his preparation to the SQE. So thank you very much, Helen, for this. And we're going to move on to the next slide to talk about a little bit more about the cost and funding. So in this slide, the main goal is really just to list out things that you should consider. So of course, when people are thinking about starting to prepare for the SQE, cost is definitely one of the most important factor. Here on the table, you will be able to see a comparison of the cost that you will need to think about if whether you're going to do the standalone SQE prep course or you're going to do the LLM. One thing to mention or to notice is that for the LLM, there will be postgraduate loan available. So that might be a reason that is quite popular for people to do the LLM, because the loan that they're going to receive is going to cover our tuition fee and also the assessment fee for the SQE as well. And and then for the SQE, one SQE2 standalone prep course, of course, the total cost will be a little bit less than the LLM as well. So that might be something that is worth considering before you think about or choosing the kind of most suitable course for you. And on top of all the preparation course for the SQE, the assessment cost, there's also the transportation and accommodation cost that you might need to take into consideration as well. So Helen did mention in the beginning, for example, for the SQE1 exam, there will be two papers, FLK1 and FLK2, and it's going to be in 2 days. What we will recommend you to do is to really keep an eye on the booking window. Book your SQE assessment early when the booking window is open, and look for your nearest center to limit your travel and also accommodation cost. So really try to plan ahead so that you can limit the cost of the whole SQE journey. And for the SQE assessment cost, it is not included in our preparation course, and you will have to book your SQE assessment separately via the SRA. And the SQE assessment costs are likely to be increased in September, as SRA tends to increase the cost annually. So that's another thing to be mindful of. So let's move on. So for the final point, before we move on to Ben, is about the firm's opinion on this. So Helen, I'm gonna invite you to come back again. Were you just able to just give us a very brief view, for example, from the firm's point of view, do you think they will value LLM or SQE more, or does it actually matter? Will they actually value people who has done the LLM more than people who haven't? Will you be able to give us some insight on that?
Yes, so I think in respect of how the firms view things, I think there's been a bit of, I mean, it's all still quite relatively new in terms of kind of training, and I think everybody's still slightly finding their way with it, to be honest. So it's very difficult to give a definitive view. Traditionally, as it says there, that firms expected their trainees to sort of take their LLM alongside through the LPC. Often firms don't require an LLM. They will look to see the skills that you've got. I think they'll look at you as a person. And obviously passing the SQE is the critical progress that you need to make, obviously, to get to being a solicitor. So you do need to think about work experience. So, what experience have you had? If you're looking at the outset to get a job, obviously people will look to see what experience you've had, what skills you've got. If you haven't had legal work experience, it may be that you've had some experience of working somewhere else that's really sort of cross-transferable in terms of analytical skills, in terms of your people skills, etc. So in terms of LLM or SQE, in terms of whether you just want to do a prep course or not, it really, I think, does depend. It depends on you. I suppose it depends on what you are looking for. If you think back to that slide that we looked at before, where it's kind of like, well, do I just want to get through it as quickly as possible? Maybe think about doing the SQE1 prep. So it may be that you've got qualifying working experience already, so you might already have that in the bag. It may be that you're a paralegal who's been working for a while. You might have gone down the Silex route, in which case, you might want to do the SQE1 prep course. If not, or if you're worried about funding and you're thinking about sort of, student finance loans, it may be that you want to go down the LLM route in relation to that. In terms of the firms and their perspective, as I say, I think it's really dependent on the firm and the situation that you're in with them. It may be that you've been working at your firm and they are looking to help you fund it, in which case they might want that sort of that package with transactional modules where, you've got the O-shaped lawyer, so you've got those soft skills as well, I suppose, where you're thinking about how you can get on with a person, how do you get the best out of people in terms of being mentored, you mentoring somebody else. So I think there's lots of things that come into the balance when we're looking at what the firms are looking at, whether they're thinking about, we want you to have an LLM or we just want you to have passed the SQE. So it depends on where you are, I think, in your legal career journey, what stage you're at, and it also depends on what the firm are looking at within their own kind of recruitment policy. So it's a bit of a difficult one to answer, really, in relation to that. And what I would suggest is, if you're not sure, is maybe go to events, go to firm events, meet people, try and network. I mean, you should sort of be doing that anyway if you're looking for a position. If you're, doing your degree at the moment, it's a really good idea to sort of get out there in the marketplace, go to law fairs, look at firms' websites to see if they've got any open events. They might be in person, they might be online. So do your research around the firm, and then you can ask those kind of questions, and then that will put you in a really good position to make a decision that is going to be the best decision for you based on the kind of firms that you want to go to. So it's something that you need to do, I suppose, as part of your research. But I mean, if you do the LLM, I mean, there's some brilliant things that you can do within it. So not only your SQE1 prep, your SQE2 prep, but you've also got the elective modules, which are brilliant in terms of actually helping you with your SQE2 skills. So you'll be doing lots of looking at work that a solicitor would be doing in practice, so advising clients, filling forms in, thinking about it from a client perspective, doing research. So it kind of replicates all of the skills that you would be doing as part of your SQE2 prep, which is going to really get you ready for the SQE2 assessment, actually. So it is a nice way, a nice sort of gentle way to lead yourself into getting those skills. Obviously, if you're working in practice, you'll be getting those skills anyway, hopefully as well. But again, doing those transactional modules and speaking to somebody else from and getting a different perspective on it is also going to help you progress at work if you're doing a part-time LLM, I think, and doing those transactional modules against what you're doing in your normal working position. So I think it's kind of win-win to do the LLM. So yeah, it does benefit your practice and client service, as it says there, and it does prepare you for work as a newly qualified solicitor, because it's just giving you some extra, the people that are talking to you and are supervising you as part of those transactional modules, those elective modules, can give you a really good kind of practical insight. And again, it's information from somebody different than what you've got at work, or if you're not working in a legal environment, it's giving you a real insight. So I've been supervising on the employment elective because that's what my practice area was. And it's really interesting actually speaking to people, those that are in that practice area, those that aren't, just to help them sort of move along in relation to developing them. So the LLM is brilliant if you feel like you want that extra kind of support, you want to do a capstone as well, you want to do that dissertation. But then the SQE prep course might be something that's more suitable for you. So I just think you need to think about your own situation and make a decision, I say, based on your own research and what your position is.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Helen. I really like when you talk about, okay, just going to like different events, talking to the actual firms, and really to learn more about those culture, those entry requirement yourself. I think it's very, very valuable insights there. So thank you very much, Helen. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move very smoothly to Ben. Of course, we've talked quite a lot about the LLM, about the whole journey, but it's always good to hear from a current student perspective. So Ben, thank you so much for waiting and
No
for
worries.
having you today. It's really good. So before we start, like questioning you or asking you a lot of questions, can you just introduce yourself very briefly and give us a very brief overview on your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yes, hi everyone. My name's Ben, and I'm a student here at the College of Legal Practice. And I'm currently doing the part-time master's course in legal practice, which, as discussed, encompasses the preparation courses for both SQE1 and SQE2. So, and also as mentioned, I've passed SQE1, which I was very thrilled about, and I sat SQE2 in January of this year. So I am awaiting my results. And I guess in terms of kind of my career journey alongside the College of Legal Practice, I very much decided to do the part-time master's program as I thought it would work very well alongside my full-time role at Marks and Spencer as a paralegal in the employment law team. I already have my 2 years qualifying legal experience, so I decided to do the master's SQE course to, I guess, further my career as a solicitor, but also, and as Helen rightly mentioned, to broaden my kind of knowledge of areas of law that are covered as part of the master's course. Yeah, so that's a little bit of background about me, Jolly.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much. Of course, we have quite a lot of pre-collected questions, but then I've grouped
Sure.
them into different groups. But I guess the first thing is the first group, big group, is about the study tips and how you study. So quite a lot of
Sure.
questions. So first of all, just to ask you, how do you actually start preparing for the SQE exam? How do you utilize the material from the college, and how do you combine that with your style and prepare for the SQE exam?
Sure. I think it's a really good question actually. Um, so I guess the one thing, and as Helen rightly mentioned, it's quite helpful because the College of Legal Practice is very guided. So you do log on to the Canvas account and you have a calendar and it sets out what you need to do and when. But equally there is that flexibility. So when I was doing my SQE1 prep, for example, I had a number of modules to go through throughout the week, but provided those SQE1 modules were done within that week, that's absolutely fine. So you could choose to study on the weekend, you could choose to study a little bit after work. It completely is very much down to you. But I think it goes back to my kind of first point I said earlier is about time. So I think that's the first thing that I would say in terms of how I studied for SQE. I think if someone told me at the beginning how much of a time commitment it is, I think I would have probably planned my time a little bit better in terms of kind of, you know, getting ahead when I was having a downtime. And maybe if you kind of can get ahead, if things do get really busy, or there is an area of law which perhaps you do need to spend a little bit more time on because you're struggling with it, you can afford yourself to have that time. But also in terms of actual study skills, I would say, and it was quite interesting how Helen mentioned that when she was speaking about a few examples. I think at university, at A level, at all kind of aspects of kind of when I have studied, I am very much an avid note taker. I take notes on every single thing, very intense notes, but that is just simply not possible with the SQE. You have to learn different skills. You have to really laser focus your learning as to what is going to allow you to be successful in the exam. So I think you have to revise very, very smart with the time that you've got. And I remember with my personal tutor at the time, it was something at the College of Legal Practice I really had lots of conversations with her about, and it was really, really valuable. And we worked on kind of study techniques, how we can kind of cut down on my notes and make a more effective use of my time. And also more broadly, I guess with the College of Legal Practice, you do start each subunit with kind of an introductory video or podcast. And it is really, really helpful because it allows you to get kind of the key principles and areas of law that you need for that module. And it is really, really helpful because then it allows you to go a little bit more in depth with the reading, but you already have that kind of broad bones of that area of law. So the College of Legal Practice really does allow you to build on that knowledge, which I think is really, really great. So yeah, so I would say time, effective study techniques, and also ensuring that you take a break as well, because I think, it's important that, when you are studying so intensely, and if you are doing the part-time course alongside working, it's very important to, study feeling refreshed. So it's important to take a break for yourself as well.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Ben. Really, I guess the kind of things that we take from here is like everyone has their own different style and technique. You
Yeah.
just need to find the right one for you, and then to make sure that you can study smartly as well, not just memorize everything. You need to make sure that you digest those information, you follow a way that will work for you as well. So that's really good to hear that. Thank you very much, Ben.
No worries.
And also, of course, just now you mentioned that time is very limited. And just now, Helen also mentioned that, for example, for the SQE one, you only have 1 minute 40 seconds to actually answer, read the question, and then choose
Mhm.
the best answer. How do you find the SQE one exam?
Yeah.
And after you do the exam, are you confident, or how was your whole experience in taking the SQE one?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. So I guess in terms of timing, Helen's absolutely right. It is a very intense set of exams. In terms of timing, I think it seems like you do have a long period of time, having multiple hours across, you know, several days, but actually when it comes to it, it's a lot of questions to answer in a very short amount of time. And I think one of the things that I found particularly unusual about the SQE1 exams is that, you can answer one question on, say, property law, then the next question could be on business law, the question after that could be on tort. So you really do have to move quite quickly across different areas of law as well. So it can take it is a I think it's a particular skill in itself. Um, but I think one thing that is pretty helpful is with the College of Legal Practice, there is a lot of opportunity to practice. That practicing kind of it with a particular module, doing mock exams that kind of almost replicate the SQE1 exam. So you do go into it fully, ready in terms of timings, and you know what is to be expected. So I think that's really really helpful. In terms of the SQE1 exam day itself, it was unusual. I would say it was a different experience because I think we're all so used to kind of doing exams in school, at university, etc. And you are doing this exam in a Pearson VUE test centre, whereby it's a multifunctional building, whereby people may be sitting different exams on the same day as you that are not related to law. So it's an interesting experience, and I think it very much depends on your test center. So I did my SQE1 exams in a very large centre in London, and it was huge, and there was hundreds of students all at one time sitting the exam across multiple rooms. And so yeah, it can be a little bit overwhelming, but it very much depends on, I think, the test center. But I think you do quickly adjust. I think once you are in the zone and you're sat at your table and you have your computer, you do get into it and you can kind of progress quite quickly. So yeah, but it's a very different exam, particularly because it's single best answer. So I would say you have five choices of answer for SQ1, and you do look at the answers sometimes and you think every one could possibly be correct, but you have to pick the most correct one. And so that is a skill in itself that the College of Legal Practice really just help you with. So I think that is something you do need to think about before going into the exam, because I think you can know the knowledge down to a T, but it's the skill of applying that knowledge to the question and the STEM that is really important.
That's great. Thank you very much, Ben. And yes, I agree. It's all about practicing. And the more you practice, the more confident you are. And then the more you know how much you need to digest and then how quick you need to answer a question on average. So definitely really, really good advice. Thank you very much. And of course, just now, Helen did mention a little bit about like the surgery, how they will organize surgery, town halls, do group sessions, and personal supervision. How do you find those sessions? Do you find them helpful in helping you study along like the whole journey?
Oh, 100% definitely. I think with the town halls, I think they're really good on kind of a practical perspective in terms of kind of where you're at your course, where the course is going, practical information about when to book your SQE1 exams or SQE2 exams. They set a really good solid direction about where you're headed, which I think is really helpful. And then in terms of the surgeries, I think it was useful to kind of get support from an expert in that area of law on that particular unit or module. Um, and what I did is I used the discussion boards in the Canvas platform to ask precise questions. But if it was a question or a principle that I was really not understanding, I would save it for a surgery and then speak about it, because the chances are, and one thing I did learn, if there's an area of law that you're finding particularly difficult, chances are other people are finding it quite difficult, and then you can kind of engage in a conversation with kind of fellow students, the expert in that area of law, and really get clarity. So I think, yeah, really, really helpful. And I think, they are exceptionally valuable. And I would say that's, I guess, from also an academic perspective, but I guess from a pastoral perspective, I think one of the things that stands the College of Legal Practice out from other providers is the very personalized approach. And I mean personalized in terms of having I guess, a one-to-one personal tutor, whereby, I guess, from an academic perspective, you can discuss your concerns, your worries, or equally the things that are going really well in your kind of study journey. But also, I guess, from a pastoral perspective as well, because, it is a very intense course. And I do think sometimes you need that kind of support, that one-to-one support, which the College of Legal Practice does offer. So, yeah, so I think there is kind of several. It's not just with the College of Legal Practice. You're given kind of some textbooks, and it's there. Go. You've got the knowledge. Practice. There are several steps and several ways of getting support, practicing. So you really do end the course feeling like, right, I am ready to sit the SQE1 course, the SQE1 exam now. So yeah, so it's been a really good journey, I would say.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Ben. I guess this is something that a lot of people are concerned about when they hear about online courses, because they must be concerned about, okay, what kind of like personal or supervision or group sessions that they can actually have, and the interaction with the course mate and the supervisors as well. So it's really good to hear that you're very happy with the kind
Mhm.
of support that we provide to
Okay.
help you learn along the way. So that's really, really good. Thank you very much. So of course, when you are preparing or doing your LLM, of course, you have already secured your qualifying work experience already, but are you still working when you are doing the LLM?
Yes, I am. Yes. So
Okay.
I work at Marks and Spencer's as a paralegal in the employment law team.
Hmm.
And very early on, I secured my qualifying work experience. So
Mm,
that was signed off by my manager, who's also a qualified solicitor in employment law. But yes, but I've continued to work alongside doing the LLM.
okay, thank you. And how do you actually manage your job while you're actually studying? Of course, work will be taking like the whole chunk of your day. How does your work, how does your day look like normally?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, actually. And I would say as well, it depends on the week and the particular how intense work is, etc., what time I finish. But I think for me, I like to make the use of my weekends. Usually one day on a weekend, I will dedicate that to being a study day. It very much depends whether it's a Saturday or a Sunday, depends whether I have social plans or not. But I also do like to kind of progress through my studies a little bit every evening after work. But I also ensure that I get a day off on the weekends, and I certainly don't work every day after work. I just ensure that I am continuously progressing. But I think as well, I think it's important to use the Canvas calendar that the College of Legal Practice provides, because, there is certain areas of law that I think are a little bit more lighter in terms of the content, and you can get through them quicker, so you may not need to dedicate as much time. Whereas, there might be certain areas of law that you find really tricky or a little bit more, heavy in terms of content. So you will need to kind of plan ahead and think, right, okay, actually, my Saturday, I really do need to go through this particular area of criminal law that I'm finding really challenging. So really plan in advance, I think, is the key here. But yeah, so it's a mixture. It's a mixture of, I guess, weekend work, and then sometimes on the evenings as well. But I always ensure that I have a little bit of time off because, as I said before, in order to effectively study, you do also need to rest effectively as well. It's very important.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much, Ben. And yeah, I think it's really good to hear from you that you are taking some time off as well in your week to make sure that you take care of yourself while you are doing all the work, all the study, all the learning, but you still try to make sure that you have the time to rest, which is very, very important, because when someone is actually very into or very focused on something, sometimes they just forgot to take care of themselves. So
Yeah, of
really,
course.
really good suggestion, and really like your idea of like the idea that you plan ahead and you
Mhm.
also have a structure for your week so that you know what your short-term goals is, what you need to achieve by the end of this week. So very, very good study tips. Thank you very much.
Okay.
And of course, in our pre-collected questions, we do have some undergraduate students there, and some of them they were asking like, do you have any advice that you have for current law students wishing to take the SQE? Is there anything that they have to do while they're at the uni or at their early stage of their journey?
Sure. No, that's quite interesting actually. I think one of the things I wish I did is have the SQE in mind when I was doing my undergraduate law degree. So if you are doing a law degree, and I appreciate a lot of people will not be because it isn't a requirement in the SQE journey. But if you are doing a law degree, I suggest that you keep your notes. So if you are doing seminars in tort or criminal, keep your notes because they may be helpful later down the line. Equally, if you are not doing, you know, a law degree, that's kind of no hindrance to you because the College of Legal Practice does provide you with everything that you do need to know. But I would say as well, I think it goes back to Helen's point, you know, if, you know, the ultimate goal is to be a solicitor, I would say it's really important that, you know, to think of the SQE, but also think of your future career prospects as well. So, you know, get out there, get networking, go to different events that are hosted by law firms. And as Helen rightly said as well, a lot of those are virtual now, so they're quite easy to join. I do think, you know, a career in law is about building relationships. And so I think you need to build those relationships as early as possible when you are studying, whether that be law or otherwise, you're doing a different degree. Yeah, I think it's building that network is really helpful.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Ben. It's really insightful to hear from you. Okay, what would be the best advice to do, especially now you are currently doing the LLM. Before we finish, I have one more question for you, if that's all right.
Sure, sure.
It's about your work experience. So now you're a paralegal. How
Mhm.
did you secure this work experience before you start your LLM? Like, is there anything that you did, or how did you apply for this job?
Sure. So I've been at Marks and Spencer's for nearly 4 years now, and I think the moment when I had the opportunity to take the SQE, I had a conversation with my manager who was really supportive, and I outlined my intentions in terms of my career and that I wanted to be a solicitor, and yeah, spoke to him about it, and I explained the requirements of what is required, what is needed in terms of qualifying work experience, and he was very happy to support that. Some of the qualifying work experience I already did, others I needed to work on, and he was happy to support me with that and my SQE journey. And then alongside that, I think it is very important to document your qualifying work experience as well. So one thing I advise. You know, people that want to are considering this journey is have a look at the SRA website, and there is a template qualifying work experience Word document, and you can use that document to basically, even at a very early stage, look at what should be covered in the qualifying work experience, what skills you need to demonstrate, and how. Um, and yeah, so I kept this document alive. And when I kind of, you know, did a piece of work, I thought actually that meets that solicitor competency. I'd make sure I kept a note of it. And then when it actually got to signing off my qualifying work experience, I could present this document with all of the examples to my manager, and he was like, "Yeah, you've demonstrated that." He supervised me doing that, so he knew what I did, and he could very easily sign my qualifying work experience off. So yeah, so that's how I managed to get my qualifying work experience.
That's brilliant. That's actually very, very useful to really understand the qualifying work experience and all the requirement first, so that you know when you're applying for jobs, when you're applying for qualifying work experience, you know what you need to gain, and it's
Mm.
easier for you to have a conversation with your manager or with that firm that you're applying to as well. So that's really, really good advice. Thank you very much, Ben. And I know
Thank
that
you.
today we covered quite a lot about your study tips, how you manage your commitments, how you got your qualifying work experience. I know that, of course, a lot of people will have more questions, but thank you so much for your time today,
Thank
and
you.
your advices are really, really helpful. So thank you very much, Ben.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Thanks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move on to really talk a little bit more about. So on the screen, you will be able to see our Secrets to SQE Success Guide. Of course, if you are already at a stage where you know that I wanted to take the SQE exam, then feel free to download this guide, scan the QR code. This is a guide that we basically ask our students who took the exam, and also our academic team members who have taught the prep course, to provide really valuable tips in being successful, and also providing some top tips in preparing for the exam as well. So feel free to download this free guide. And of course, as summary of what Helen and also Ben has mentioned today, of course, now you should know that we do have our very unique approach in helping students to succeed in their SQE, including flexible learning. So we're an online learning provider. We offer both full-time and also part-time options for students to choose from. So depending on your weekly commitment, you can choose either full-time or part-time. And there will also be weekly timetable available so that you can actually plan your learning into your work week. And as just suggested by Helen and also Ben, there will be group sessions, which we call them town halls, and also surgeries to support your learning. And of course, there are personal supervision session as well. And also mentioned by them, there will be practice assessment. It's all about practice. So we will give you mock exams or mock assessment or practice assessment to make sure that you will have the opportunity to practice on the SQE before you take the national exam. And one unique element that I would like to mention is definitely about our SQE Ready review. So you will basically get an individual SQE Ready review. And this is actually an advice provided by our supervisor on the likelihood of passing the SQE assessment based on your performance throughout the whole program. So this will be a very good indication to see whether you are ready to take the SQE. And a lot of our students find this really, really helpful. And of course, even though this is an online course, this is an online college, we do offer hard copy materials for students. So if you wanted to take notes on your materials, you will have those. And lastly, wanted to mention about the reasonable adjustment that I've mentioned in the beginning, but we wanted to make sure that every student has access to fair learning and also assessment, and they will feel confident in their ability to succeed in their study. So if you potentially will need reasonable adjustment, feel free to talk to us during your application, before your application, or after your application. Make us aware so that we can prepare as soon as possible, plan ahead, and we'll be able to accommodate your needs. And lastly, just wanted to highlight the excellent student feedback that we receive. So we have really, really positive feedback from our students so far about our approach in helping them to prepare for the SQE. So just to give you a very like some numbers. So for our SQE prep course last year, around 88% of students were likely to recommend the college to others. And for the GFL, the law conversion course that finished in 2023, the college actually has a 100% student satisfaction rate with the program overall. So it's really, really rewarding to see that our students are highly satisfied about our courses and our approach. So on this slide, you'll be able to see the list of courses that we offer. We offer law conversion courses for non-law graduates. And we, as mentioned just now, we offer the SQE1, SQE2 standalone courses. And then we also offer LLM in legal practice, which include both SQE1 and SQE2. And this slide, you will be able to see the upcoming start dates that we have for our SQE1 prep course and the LLM. So depending the study mall, we have different start dates. Some of the application deadline are approaching, so please remember to apply as soon as possible if you wanted to secure your enrollment. But of course, as mentioned in the beginning, if you have any further questions or would like to book a one-to-one chat with us, feel free to use the QR code and then book a time with us, and we'll be very happy to discuss further on your situation and advise further what would be the best option for you. Let me have a look at the chat box. Thank you very much, Helen, for answering some of the questions. Really appreciate that. But of course, I'm aware of the time, and if anyone has any further questions, I will answer. If you leave an email or send me like a message with your email address, then I can give you more information about a specific topic that you would like to learn more about, or the easiest way is to send us an email or book a one-to-one chat with us. But Again, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us tonight. And thank you so much, Helen, and also Ben, for joining us and providing so many useful information and advices today. So I hope everyone have a very good evening, and I hope we will see you next time. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye bye.